You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is October the 21st, 2019. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
Good evening, young Carl.
Good evening to you. It is a election day in Canada, and yet we are still here. We have made time for you, the people. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing good, man. I mean, I voted last 2 weeks ago or something. So I didn't have to do a civic duty today, but now
you went and voted twice anyways, though, right?
No, I did not. If anyone from Elections Canada is listening, I did not vote twice.
Okay, just me then. Just me.
Yeah, election night in Canada, but also hockey night in Canada because there's hockey on.
There's hockey on, and it's good. You know, we can enjoy what we have after the fact. Mike Sullivan had some thoughts this week on preparing for hockey.
Yeah, the good old morning skate before the game. Teams go out, they do a light skate, light practice. Normally it's optional. What do you think about the morning skate?
I mean, it's good to go over some stuff, right? It seems like a good reason to go over some last minute things. You can do it. You can kind of like work through some stuff and you're there. I mean, if it's optional, then I guess, sure. Why not? If the guys want to go out and they want to get a skate in before the game, I don't see why we're stopping them from doing it. It's not like there's a rink of just like randomly available for them to go use. We've got this ice. Go out if you want to. I don't see anything wrong with it.
I think the idea is to get out and, warm up a little bit, move your legs, get your heart rate going, prepare yourself, put yourself in the mindset for the actual game.
Yeah, before you go home, make lunch, have a nap, and then another meal before the game.
Yeah. See, we're very reasonable about morning skates. We get it. Not like Mike Sullivan.
Like, it's not like I think of myself, right? If I were to be a professional athlete, I would for sure have to pre-exercise before exercising at night. Like I would need that. Like I'm going to have to limber up a little bit.
Yeah.
Or else I'm for sure going to hurt myself.
For sure. You got to keep it light. Like that's the only thing. Like I wouldn't go too hard, but yeah, you go for.
I'm doing wind sprints every morning before game days. Is that just me?
Yes, that's just you, Carl. And that's also why you can't. Your legs hurt all the time.
And instead of doing like the pregame dribbling drills that everyone does outside the dressing room, I'm playing full-on soccer games beforehand.
Just running the pitch.
Yeah, you gotta get some work in.
Just can't stop, won't stop. Warming up for the main event. Well, Mike Sullivan believes that the morning skate is the most overrated practice in hockey. He doesn't seem like he really believes in them. And he made a very interesting analogy to what a morning skate is. So I have the quote in front of me. Is it okay if I just read it verbatim? Because this can't be summarized.
Okay, hit me.
Okay. It's like, why does the whole league have morning skates? It reminds me of why my mother cut the side of hams off before she cooked them. I asked her, "Hey Ma, why do you cut the side of hams off?" She said, "I don't know, because that's how my mother taught me." So I asked my grandmother. I said, "Why do you cut the sides of the hams off before you put them in the oven?" She said, "That was easy. I didn't have a pan that was big enough." And that's his analogy of morning skates. So in his mind, there's a big enough pan. They don't need to cut the sides of the ham off.
So who is the big ham in this situation? I can only assume that's Sidney Crosby.
It's got to be.
The man of the big hams.
Yeah.
And now we've got a big enough rink that he doesn't need to trim down before the games.
The size of the ham, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't fully understand the analogy.
I mean,
Because I guess in this situation, you cut the sides of the ham off so they fit in the pan.
right.
So when it comes to morning skates and playing a game, is the morning skate the ham?
I think,
And the game is the pan?
and now there's a larger demand on the players, or there's less of a demand,
Or they're slim enough.
or they don't need anything, right? Size doesn't matter. It's 2019. Why are we fat shaming this ham?
That's it, Carl. I think you just cracked it wide open.
That's it. Mike Sullivan has a real take.
You just sliced the sides off that ham.
I did.
Figured it out.
Well, there we go. Thank you to Mike Sullivan. I did have ham for lunch today, actually.
Oh, how was it?
It was old ham. It was not, it could have used a morning skate is what I'm saying. It for sure could use a morning skate, but hey, his Penguins are doing well. We'll touch on them today. We're going to touch on some suspension that happened this week, some rivalries that are happening, some winners, some losers, and some that are just okay. All that was this week in the NHL. And that's actually not the only good quote we have this week. It was a very quotable week in the National Hockey League.
Love our quotes.
We do. I mean, if we can get someone else to talk for us for the entire episode, why not? Why not? Right?
Why work when you don't have to?
Exactly. Well, Nick, let's remember that this episode of the Fourth Line Podcast is brought to you by a brand new sponsor this week, a brand new supporter. TELUS World of Science in Edmonton is going to be home of the Canadian debut of Marvel Universe of Superheroes.
Whoa.
Right? You're a Marveler, right?
I'm a Marveler, yeah. I marvel.
You dabble in the Marvel.
Yeah, I marvel frequently.
Well, if you happen to be in Edmonton, and great news is it's running big time. 4 months, October 19th to February 17th in Edmonton. More than 300 artifacts, costumes, props, interactive elements from MCU are going to be there. So if you were to head there and you, for example, were a big Doctor Strange or Iron Man, Black Panther, Spider-Man fan, they are all going to have stuff there. Head on over to telusworldofscienceedmonton.ca. And also, if you wanted to go, like if this is such a big deal you want to go there, there's also a hotel deal that you can get at that website too. So if you're wanting to head to Edmonton, head there. It's the only place in Canada that this exhibit's going to be running. So don't miss out. Head there, do that. One thing that I love, and I'm sure you do too, Nick, is rivalries in hockey.
I'm a big fan of a good rivalry, Carl. You and I are both very familiar with that.
We know how much we have really we've gone beyond rivalry though. I feel like we've done work.
We've gone so far into rivalry that we went into friendship.
Like we cut the ends off the ham is what we did.
We cut the ends off the ham. We made it fit in that pan.
Right? Like this, we certainly would not have fit in this podcast pan without the ends cut off.
It's true.
But you know what? Could have bought a bigger pan. Instead, we cut the ends off. That said, there's not enough room in the rink right now for Matthew Tkachuk and Drew Doughty to fit in it, and I am all on board with it.
Yeah, so this is awesome. Can you give me a quick recap of this rivalry that's happening right now? I know it dates back to last year, but because I'm so East Coast biased, I don't have the whole story.
I want to say it goes back further than that.
2 years ago?
It goes back to a Matthew Tkachuk elbow Drew Doughty and got suspended for it. And I want to say that was 2 years ago at this point.
That would have been his rookie season, right?
Yeah, this was real early. Matthew Tkachuk suspended 2 games March 20th, 2017. So yeah, that would have been 2 full seasons ago.
Yeah.
That he would have done that. So end of his rookie season, elbow Doughty, and that's what started this. That was really what kickstarted this. And now we're at the point that every time these two teams meet, two teams that have not met in the playoffs since, I believe, 1992, we now somehow have a regular season rivalry, which is fantastic.
Because of a conflict between two players.
Because of just two players, yeah. So earlier this season, they're in Calgary, and obviously they're talking about it. Media's asking the guys, how do you feel? Blah 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 blah. Drew Doughty scores the overtime winner, and told the guys, I'm shooting the puck every time I get it. Like I'm putting this on net. I want this because you know what? When you're the Los Angeles Kings this season, you can do things like that. Your best player, yeah, you can go out. Drew, you can do whatever you want tonight. You want to go get that? You're playing all 5 minutes of overtime. Go at it.
That's how I imagine those conversations go pregame.
Just, yeah. They're off not having a morning skate because it's optional, and they go from there.
Yeah, it's just at home eating a piece of ham.
Just the ends. He's only eating the ends off the ham.
Just the ends. That's a Drew Doughty move right there.
Drew Doughty, just a ham ender. Scored and just really gave it, right? Gave the old wrestling ear to the crowd, ate it up.
Yep.
Then this weekend, down back in LA, a real brouhaha, a real Donnybrook broke out there. Which featured Mark Giordano literally flying through the air to hit somebody. There was a pile, he wanted to be in it, and he overshot the pile.
So I missed this whole thing. Did it start with Doughty and Tkachuk?
It did, yeah. So Doughty went real low on a hit. Real low. Up against the boards, took Tkachuk out and just really stuck the landing to the point that they were just together. So then Tkachuk wrestled him to the ground. Others joined in. Gio flew over and just flying tackle the guy. It got out of hand.
But it's fun, right? Because there's all this on-ice shenanigans, but then there's also the extracurriculars. Because these guys are out in the media being asked about it, and they're taunting each other through the press.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's great, right? To have that, and the fact that it's neither of these guys have shown in any way that they're going to back down, or they're going to avoid it, or they're not going to talk about it. This is what we're going to get with them, and it's great.
Yeah. I think it's on Matthew Tkachuk's part, it's pretty bold, even for how this whole thing started. You go after one of the veteran defensemen in the league, Norris Trophy winner, Stanley Cup champion. And then to keep it going, he really got under Drew Doughty's skin. For Doughty, a league veteran, to turn around and start chirping him through the media.
As such a young guy, as a rookie coming in, to really from day one. Well, I think it's frustrating when you're a veteran and you think, as a veteran, I demand respect. And this rookie is coming out here, hit me in the head, trying to hurt me. And in no way does his suspension change his behavior at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe in the next game they played after that, Tkachuk was asked by the Kings that he was told, you're going to need to settle your score tonight. You're going to have to fight one of us to settle the score. And he did. But it didn't stop the chirping. No, he didn't. And you know what? I'm glad for it. So hopefully, luckily they're in the same division. They'll be playing more this year. Look forward to what happens next time when the Kings and the Flames play. Yeah, it'll be fun to follow. There will be more. There was a suspension handed out this week. And have you heard of Valentin Zykov, Nick? Not until this week. Handed a 20-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs from the National Hockey League. Member of the Vegas Golden Knights. And that you may, Vegas, this is what, their third season? Yes.
How many players have been suspended under the performance-enhancing drug rules? Are you in the last
2.
while? Well, 2 from Vegas, right?
Yes.
And how many from the entire rest of the NHL?
I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
Right. So at the time that Nate Schmidt, the first Golden Knight that got suspended, he said that what he tested positive for, he got from the team. And now we've got Zykov, who knowingly used a banned substance. Now, granted, Zykov, 24 years old, player of 47 career games. You know what? What does he... I mean, he has some to lose, but he has a lot more to gain than he does to lose. Right?
Yeah.
It's the same. You see it a lot more in baseball, where these minor leaguers are taking steroids to get that, that bump. Because then once you do it, right, then it's not like those steroids and like the positive gains you had disappear. It's not like it's not like during his 20-game suspension, he'll suddenly like, also you're not allowed to work out, and all of like that performance that you gained and that muscle you built is like, that's gone, right? That's not a thing.
So I'm not familiar with steroids or PEDs in any way. So is this something that once you start and you bulk up, you need to keep doing it to stay bulked up? Or do you like wean yourself off of it and then you're just bulked up?
I mean, there is an amount of needing to. I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna come out here and say that I am well versed on steroids and election fraud on the same episode. Not gonna do that. However, from what I understand, that if you use it, you do those improvements that you get stay with you, and certainly it's not as much. But I mean, how quickly does one lose muscle? Right? Like, these guys are professional athletes. They're working out. You're building that up. Sure, if you were to stop exercising entirely, you'd lose that. But with what he's, the workout regimes of athletes, no, you're gonna keep that for some time.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to me that he even took the chance based on what happened last year with Nate Schmidt.
Yeah, well, especially now, like, hey, Vegas, they use drugs there. They're gonna be doing that thing. How much more do you think Vegas is going to be getting tested now?
Probably a little more frequently than the rest of the league, I would think.
When there's smoke, there's fire. When there's
100%.
Yeah.
But Carl, it's Las Vegas. Come on, is anyone surprised? There were literal news stories about the Vegas hangover in year 1.
Yeah. Turns out, you know what that hangover was? It was that everyone was stealing the other team's steroids and giving them to Vegas's players. We figured it out.
It's the other teams just selling it to them.
Yeah. Man, now we know. We figured it out. Busted. I don't know. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I assume there won't be many others, but it's interesting to me that Vegas, again, after supplying Nate Schmidt with a banned substance, that they would come out again and have a second player.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It'll be interesting to monitor. I mean, the player himself, I don't think is a huge news story. Like, I had never even heard his name before this. Who is this guy? I don't know. Yeah,
we might not, and to be fair, we're not great at it. We might not be saying his name correctly even.
Yes, that's true. Although that's a common ailment on this show.
You don't have to be a borderline AHL.
Oh, fuck.
Does Nick have a fire alarm going off?
It's not continuing.
Oh, we're safe. We good?
We good for now.
We good. All right. We're still rolling. So we need to hurry up with the show before Nick's apartment burns down. If that happens again, we might just lose Nick, and that might be the end of our night. So let's get to, you know what's hotter than Nick's apartment? The Colorado Avalanche.
Hey, nice segue, Carl.
Thank you. Do you consider them undefeated? They lost in regulation. Does that or in overtime. They haven't lost in regulation.
I mean, I think they still lost, so I don't consider them undefeated. They lost a game.
They did, yep.
But I'm okay with you saying, I don't know, they've gotten a point in every game, or they're on a point streak.
So you're okay with telling the truth about their losses and also their point streak.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so they've got.
How would you describe it? That they're just on a season-opening point streak?
Yeah, I could say that. They've only lost one game, and it was in overtime. I would justify it like that. Nonetheless, Avalanche, top of the NHL, and I'm thrilled. We talked last week about who would be the first team to lose. Oilers fans justified that they had the same number of games played that the Avalanche did by the time they lost, and I don't care. The Oilers on the calendar lost first. Avalanche, last team to be defeated. Deal with it, Edmonton.
I'm most proud of you for this, Carl, because you made an argument based on fact and grounded in reality as to why you thought it would be the Colorado Avalanche.
And I was right.
And you were right.
Yeah.
And I admit it, and I have to admit it and give you props. You were right. And it wasn't from a place of bias.
Yeah, I know. It feels good. But here's the thing. They have played obviously well, right? 15 points in 8 games, on pace for 152 points this season. I think they might come in a little under that.
I think so too.
I was looking up, I was trying to see, how crazy good of a season do they need for, thing X to happen. Turns out an 8-game sample size is not enough to skew almost anything in the scope of the season. Which is to say that, because, I looked and I was like, all right, so last year Tampa had 125 points or whatever it was that Tampa had. What kind of a pace do they need to be at to hit 125 points at the end of the year? It's 121. They still need to be a President's Trophy level team to win the President's Trophy. Who knew?
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you figured that one out.
Yeah, that's why they play more than 8 games in the season.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what are the highlights so far of the season? Nathan MacKinnon, obviously.
I mean, to expect Nathan MacKinnon.
Yeah.
Philip Grubauer without a safety net.
Yeah.
So Pavel Francouz, who is a name that I have tried to learn how to say, as backup. He's been good. He's played in 2 games. I've been happy with what he can do. But my biggest thing that I'm enjoying is not even. I thought it would be Cale Makar. I thought that's what I'd be pumped about, but it's not. It is the second line. Turns out having an entirely brand new second line is really nice. A second line that I tried to remember who was on that second line last year, and it was a rotation of weirdness centered by Carl Soderberg, and that's probably why I don't fully recall the rest of the pieces around him. But you'd have Colin Wilson on that line. You'd have Tyson Yost. You'd have JT Compher sometimes on that wing. You'd have Matt Nieto. It was just everyone on that team would rotate through there. And now we have a second line that's an actual line, right? We have Kadri with Donskoy and Burakovsky. Fantastic, right?
It's a good second line.
It's a very good second. They have 10 goals this year already.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. 2 of those Burakovsky goals, game winners. So having that where you don't have to put all that pressure on the McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen line. Whereas last year, there was throughout the year, Bednar would have to think to himself, and we saw at times him splitting that line up, right? That top line, because he needed a secondary scoring threat, and the only way to get that was to split those guys up. Now you don't have to. You can have that top line do their thing, but then also have that second line that can do that. And not only are they scoring, right? One thing that I love about Kadri is how good he is defensively, which is something that's not going to look nice or be flashy, but that was some of what he has excelled at, and I've enjoyed the fact that you can have that, not a full two-way center, but someone who's capable in his own end.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that came from playing under Mike Babcock too. That Babcock really drilled in the two-way center position into him and how you need to play back in your own zone too. Because once he started playing under Babcock, he got really serious really fast, and he became a very good defensive player.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that he doesn't get suspended this year. Fingers crossed, and we can see what he can do if, fingers crossed, we make the playoffs.
But he doesn't have to be the retribution guy on the Avs, right? Like the Leafs didn't really have anyone else.
Yeah, we've got Nikita Zadorov who's going to do that.
Yeah. Matt Calvert can do it too.
Yeah, right. We've got Nikita Zadorov who's going to get healthy scratched apparently. So if we're going to healthy scratch him, you might as well get suspended. You might as well earn that day off.
Yeah. But yeah, so the point being that he doesn't need to be that tough guy who comes to everyone's rescue on this team. He can focus on playing strong defensive hockey and adding secondary scoring.
Yeah, he's more than just a set of mitts for sure.
Yeah.
So so that's the Avalanche. Every team also has a win this year now. The New Jersey Devils finally did it.
They have 2 since we last talked.
2?
I think.
No,
I better check that.
Just New Jersey Devils fans are getting real excited.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, you're right, Nick.
They're 2-4-2. Thank you, Carl.
Now there's only one team with 1 win, and it's the Senators, just like we all expected.
Pretty much.
So the Devils winning with those 2 wins. Can we unsound the sirens? Like, okay, so I now hear sirens outside of your house. Speaking of sirens and alarms, like, do you need to be leaving right now?
No.
Okay.
They'll tell us if we do.
Okay.
But
perfect.
That being said, the fire trucks are outside.
Okay. Well, we'll see. What floor are you on?
I'm on 7.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I could drop from here and it'd be fine.
I don't think it would be. Like, I don't know what height a human person. Isn't 7 too high?
I don't know. If I did like a light drop and brace myself, I feel like I'd just break my legs.
Okay, I was gonna say also we need to define what fine means. Like
alive.
Okay, alive.
Just a heartbeat.
Okay, yeah, I think you would be fine from the 7th floor then.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
let's hope it doesn't come to that. But
I was gonna say you're not alone in that apartment, Nick.
No.
So let's hope that that's not how this episode ends.
Yeah, no, we're all good. What were we talking about? Hockey.
I don't remember.
The Devils.
The Devils. Right.
On fire.
Yeah, they're also on fire now. Are we less concerned? Is this Devils team okay now? Can we stop panicking, or should we, still have a little bit?
I'm not less concerned. I'm probably not panicking anymore, but I'm still concerned for how they started and how this is all coming together. Because
Mackenzie Blackwood got a shutout. I mean, it was the Canucks, but he got a shutout. Is that, and we talked last week about how he needed to be, well, I thought he needed to be the guy for the Devils.
Yeah, and great. He had a good game and got a shutout, but his save percentage is still sub 900.
That's not good.
That's not good. That's a concern. So good. You had one good game. You posted a shutout. Do it again.
A second shutout.
Okay, maybe not a shutout, but post a good 9-15 in your next game.
I love Nick's high standards for people. You know what? Do it again. Double down. Second shutout. Then I'll care.
That's right.
I like it. I'm obviously not excited. I'm not Devils in the playoffs, but good on them to win. And also the fact that they won the Hughes Kako Bowl. There was enough room in that bowl to leave the sides on the ham.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have to cut the sides off. They had the morning skate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, they wanted to be ready for each other, so
they needed to prepare.
That's right.
Another thing of overreacting to small sample sizes. I don't know if you've looked at the NHL points board, but one of my namesakes Old Jonathan Carlson.
Does that count as a namesake?
Carl's in his name.
But his name's not Carl.
I mean, do you not feel a special connection with people whose like last name is Nickerson?
No.
just me then.
I've never heard a name like that before.
You've never heard someone with the last name like Nick? Oh, okay, cool.
No, Nickerson. But I hope their first name's Nick.
No, there's a comedian whose first name is Dustin.
Dustin Nickerson?
Dustin Nickerson, yeah.
Well, never heard him. Never heard of him.
Well, there you go. What? So I guess maybe it's because it's a more common name. I assume that people whose names are John don't have an affiliation for like Johnson named people. Just because like there's Johns everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very common name. You can't love everybody who's named John.
No,
there's too many of them.
Yeah, and there's got to be a bad seed in there somewhere.
Yeah, unlike the Carls.
Unlike the Carls, where
no bad seeds.
We're all pretty okay.
Okay,
people.
Carl. Okay, pretty okay. Okay, talk about standards.
Look, you described being fine as having a heartbeat, so I can loosely define these people as being okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Nonetheless, you know what? I like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we'll say that.
Okay, I like it.
Nonetheless, John Carlson, dominant to start the season.
Leading the league in points. John Carlson, 30 years old.
Is
a
this
defenseman.
Is it his breakout season?
Big contract coming up.
I mean, doesn't he already have one?
He does, yeah.
Okay. I mean, what, 30's past his prime. What, 27 is the date?
I think the defensemen age a little better.
Okay.
Don't you? I find defensemen peak a little later and they stay good for longer.
I would agree with that. Because it has not been a recent thing that defenseman led the league in points. Again, not saying he will, but if he were to, that's like uncharted territory. Yeah.
It's pretty impressive through how many games? 10 games he's played this season.
And even if you look at, because you could look at, what he's doing and say like, okay, sure, he's played 10 games. Some teams have only played 8, right? So maybe that's it. But you even look at who else is on that team and look at who he's outscoring. Right? This Alexander Ovechkin, you might have heard of him. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Outscoring him. Like just the things like that, right? Nick Backstrom. I know Kuznetsov missed some time, but outscoring him, like he's doing it. It's pretty impressive. The last
and by a lot too, by the way.
Yeah, it's not super close.
Like he's got 18 points, and Ovechkin has 10, and he's the next closest.
Is Ovechkin even trying? That's the real question.
I mean, he's got 6 goals in 10 games.
It's pretty good. I mean, a point per game pace, nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
So the last person and to lead the league in points as a defenseman was whom?
A gentleman by the name of Bobby Orr.
Ooh, I heard of him.
Yeah. And that was in I want to say the 70s. I can't remember when I looked it up. I think it was like 76 or something like that.
I think it was 76, yeah.
So this is not something that happens often at all. And I didn't go back before 76 to see if it was a frequent thing that Bobby Orr did. But it hasn't happened since him, and there have been some very, very good defensemen in the league in that time.
Yeah. And even I did a bit of looking today as well. There have only been 2 defensemen and who have ever led their league in points 4 times. So, like, if we're talking, that's the most a defenseman's ever led his team is 4 times. I didn't fully fact check the second one, but one, Danny Potvin with the Islanders, and Erik Carlson. He did it 3 times. I believe he got the 4th, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe that.
That seems believable, right?
It's yeah, knowing the teams he played on, for sure. So I guess the question is then, is this John Carlson this year? Is he going to win the Norris Trophy for an unprecedented season that he's putting up, or is this a 10-game flash in the pan and he's going to revert back to 29-year-old John Carlson?
It's not like 29-year-old John Carlson was anything to be disappointed in, though.
No, it's not. But this is next level.
This is like unanimous Norris Trophy, right? If you lead the league in points as a defenseman, you get the Norris. You're up for the Hart. You're doing everything, right?
Yeah.
Like I can. It was 94, not 94. It was 74-75 that Bobby Orr did that. I don't know what other awards he won that year, but it's got to be substantial.
I mean, the guy won a lot of awards. He was a pretty good defenseman.
He did not win MVP that year.
In 74-75?
Bobby Clark stole that away from him.
Tough year.
He won the Norris. Good on him.
Yeah.
He won the Lester B. Pearson for that's the player voted one, I believe, right?
Yeah.
He won the Art Ross, obviously, and that's it. He only won 3 awards that season. And he also, I was going to say, he in a first team All-Star.
Okay. Did he win the Stanley Cup that year?
No, his team lost to, well, this Wikipedia site has everything. They did not make the playoffs that year. That can't be true. That can't
Come on.
Okay, no, there you go. They lost in, turns out back then, Nick, the first round was a best of 3.
Okay.
They were the 2nd seed, and they lost to Chicago in 3 games.
Oh. So they got swept.
Yeah, the Flyers. Bobby Clark's MVP Philadelphia Flyers won the Stanley Cup that season.
That makes sense.
That's why he won the MVP. Anyways, John Carlson. Yeah, I mean, he's been good. He was 4th in Norris voting last year, 5th the year before that. I would not be surprised to see him at the top of this and be a finalist, even if he doesn't keep this up. If he returns to his normal pace, he's good enough to earn that award and that recognition.
Well, if he returns to his normal pace, certainly this little boost at the start of the season's going to, from just like a point total perspective, when you look at it at the end of the year, it's going to boost him. So it's a help for him down the line, no matter what. But I agree. I think like, I don't think he's going to keep scoring at this rate or recording points at this rate, but I think that like he'll be one of the best defensemen in the league.
Yeah, and it won't be close. The only, one thing that's nice and easy to look at with these like small sample sizes and things is like percentages, right? Like when he's on the ice, his team is shooting 16%, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
If last year they were still shooting at 12.7% with him on the ice, so you can look at that. 10, 11, 12% is about on par, but they're shooting 30% higher than that. So expect that to come down. Even if his points total comes down 30% from what it is, he's still best on the Capitals.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, he is their best defenseman if you look at their roster.
I mean, a team that traded Matt Niskanen for Radko Gudas certainly can use a John Carlson on their team.
Yeah.
Jason Zucker, he is still somehow, after all of his and the Wild's attempts to trade him, he is still a member of the Minnesota Wild. However, I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last.
Why not?
He had some things to say this week, as one does. This time, focus on the team's performance. So he was asked about it, and he had some things to say. So, what do you feel? Players being honest. Do you want their honesty, or do you want them to sugarcoat it?
No, I want their honesty. From a fan perspective, from an entertainment perspective, you want them to be honest. And you
Absolutely.
want them to use the words that you want them to be emotional about it too. which I think he was.
Well, very much so. Yeah, that came from a very honest, emotional place.
Yeah, I think that's good for the game. Now, from the team's perspective, they probably didn't want so much honesty.
His teammates and, his coach certainly don't. Jazon Zucker, after what was their 6th loss in 7 games, Minnesota not doing well, they had a team meeting, right? I would love to know Mike Sullivan's thoughts on team meetings. I want some sort of food-based analogy for every part of running a hockey team. That's what I want from Mike Sullivan.
I'm sure he's got them.
He's got to,
Yeah.
So while I read this quote, it's a lot of pressure. I want you to come up with your best food-based analogy. I'm going to too, but I'm also going to be reading, so it's not going to be easy.
Okay.
So, and I don't even remember. Let's scrap that because I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, team meetings. A food-based analogy for a team meeting. Here we go. But Jazon Zucker's quote was, "I think more than a meeting's going to have to jumpstart us. To be honest with you, it's going to be each individual guy from Bruce on down. Bruce has got to be better. We've got to be better. Everybody's got to be better. That's it." Bruce, obviously being Bruce Boudreau, head coach of the Minnesota Wild. Turns out when you only mention one name, when you're like, the whole team, everyone has to be better, this guy has to be better, we all have to be better, they really focus on that one name.
Which I think is a little blown out of proportion.
It is, absolutely. Right? It's things like this are why people don't say things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I don't think there's anything wrong with what he said or even how he said it. I mean, we've seen the media used as a tactic to get teams going or get players going by calling them out. It happens every year. Coaches do it. We don't normally see it from a player.
Coaches do it all the time, right? The Dallas Stars organization made the playoffs last year based on it.
Wow, that wasn't so subtle.
Nope. But you know what? I think that in what recourse does a player have if he's signed to a team, they don't want to get rid of this coach, but the coach isn't good. You can talk to the coach behind closed doors, right? You have this closed door meeting. You get out of your closed door meeting, you're talking to the media about it. If you're still not happy with what that guy's doing, he's going to be talking about your performance to the media for sure. Coaches are going to do that all the time. I think he has every right to be able to say, if I'm going to be criticized, the guy who's telling me what to do should be criticized as well, because I don't think it's good enough.
It's certainly not a healthy working relationship.
No.
To have to air it out this way.
And now, granted, I say that, and I think to myself, you know what? Like, this is why I don't work in professional sports. I'm like, I wouldn't want my boss airing my dirty laundry to everyone.
Yeah, right.
It's like, all right, Carl, it's time for your annual performance review, and we're just going to call in TSN.
Yeah,
things.
But I think the only perspective we haven't looked at this from is Zucker's. So here's a guy who was almost traded at the deadline last year, wasn't, and then that was broadcast on national television that the Wild had a plan in place. They wanted to trade him. And now this year you got the GM switching. I saw a quote from Bill Guerin recently that said he's just going to sit tight and see what happens. He's not planning on doing it. Like, if I'm Carl Zucker, I'm like, why am I here? What is my purpose here?
Yeah.
I hear you. Trade me. What are you waiting for?
And he, I would think, unless there's a real big reason, Minnesota's rebuilding. There's no way around that. And to be able to be, all right, I can get to a fresher start, a different situation, one where I don't have to deal with that. Absolutely, that'd be something I'd be into.
Yeah. The guy's obviously unhappy, and, this is how it's kind of manifesting itself.
Well, we will see where Jazon Zucker ends up, and what happens with him, because there's I don't think this is over. This is not something that's going to to change. I know he apologized. When it becomes such a big thing in the media, you kind of have to. But
yeah. Well, good for him. We'll see what happens. I think he'll be traded.
Yeah, I think we'll. The Blues scored. I'm sad. We'll see. It makes sense for him, like we talked about, right? All the pieces got to go in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Where are we sitting at for time? We got to do some math here. We've got time for one more topic before we get to our Pavel Bures and wrap this up. The Pittsburgh Penguins are a team that have gone through some difficulties this year, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
Last week we talked about Phil Kessel. Haven't made any headway on getting him to officiate your vow renewal. But you know what? I think if you jumped out of the 7th story of a burning building, I'm saying it wouldn't hurt.
Well, it would hurt.
I mean, it wouldn't make it less likely that Phil Kessel will show up to your vow renewal.
You're not wrong. I'm just hoping he'll do it without having to jump off the balcony. So let's explore all other avenues first before you walk me off this edge, literally.
Because he could walk you down the aisle in your full body cast.
You're gonna bring a tear to my eye.
I mean, can you imagine? It would be a moment.
Can you imagine a Phil Kessel speech at a wedding?
Yeah, that'd be good.
It would be good.
Anyways, the Pittsburgh Penguins have had a slew of injuries throughout this season. The big one, Evgeny Malkin's still out. And they just had a rotating cast of characters who have been hurt so far this season, and yet continue to win. Impressive.
I mean, they're a good team still. They're still a playoff team. I don't know. It's not that surprising to me. Crosby's firing on all cylinders. Doesn't have as many points as John Carlson, but he's the best player on the Pittsburgh Penguins still.
And like the Penguins as a team, these last few years have really relied. They weren't relying on Phil Kessel. Like he could put up points and he could do things, but losing him, while certainly not the smartest of moves, and Galchenyuk's 2 points in 3 games so far this season.
He's also hurt, eh?
Yeah, he's hurt. Who else? There was Patrick Hornqvist was hurt. He ended up not missing any time.
Brian Dumoulin's out. Yeah. Brian Rust is out. Nick Bjugstad's out.
Right, Nick Bjugstad. That was the one that I was trying to think of. These are all guys that have done well. So Kessel, while I don't think that was a good choice, they've managed to survive without him, and they have managed to find like a good cast of characters around Crosby Malkin to hold this team together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's guys who came kind of. I always thought they came out of nowhere, like Jake Gensel, Zach Aston Reese. Like these guys weren't prominent draft picks that everyone was watching to make an impact. Yet they came out and in the playoffs made huge impacts on the team. And they're some of the best players on the team right now.
I think we had this conversation in the offseason. So if I have, bear with me. How many goals do you think Jake Gensel scored last year?
Oh boy. I feel like this is a trick question of some sort. 34.
He scored 40 goals.
40?
He scored 40.
Man.
Yeah. And that's
nice
when
with Crosby.
That's when I realized. But like he's not Chris Kunitzing his way to points. Like he's actually good.
Yeah.
And so like again, I also assumed that Gensel wouldn't be, and he has been. And he's kept it up. And so some of those finds.
And that's how teams like this stay good over long periods, right? We're kind of seeing the same thing in Chicago too. Although they're not as good as Pittsburgh, but you got to get a little lucky in the draft.
You got to get lucky in the draft, and you have to. I mean, Pittsburgh's great thing is that they don't have like any. These last couple of years, they've made some fresh bad signings, but they don't have like a Brent Seabrook-esque deal on their books, which certainly helps them.
Yep.
Let's head to our Pavel Bure must-watch games of the week, shall we?
Let's do it.
So the way that we do this is we tell you some games that you should watch. And that's it. It's not tied to high sticking anymore. It's just for fun. It's just us telling you some of the games that are happening and suggesting it to you. For high sticking, however, what you should do, head to our Twitter, head to our Facebook, send us an email, and pick one goalie, one defenseman, and one forward. They get points, so goals, assists, wins, shutouts. All those count up. You get points for those, and you can win cool stuff, like a Fourth Line Podcast puck, stickers, and if we were ever to get new merch, we'll put that in there too. Or if we just have something cool kicking around, like a book. Not just like any book. Like if we were, I mean, maybe any book. I don't know. I've got books.
I got a lot of old books I gotta get rid of.
I just donated a bunch to the library. Turns out I should have just been giving them away to podcast listeners.
Yeah, there you go. I hope you guys like old sci-fi.
Yeah. I've got, I don't even know what I had. Nonetheless, Tuesday, tomorrow night, there's one game on the schedule that I think we're all looking at.
Why don't you tell me what it is?
It's the Toronto Raptors home opener. But also, Toronto and Boston, a rematch from the weekend. It was a game that certainly lived up to the hype.
Yeah, it was a good
going
game.
To overtime. The rematch tomorrow night, that'll be good.
Agreed. Wednesday. You know what I'll be watching, Carl? But I wouldn't wish that on anyone else.
You know, I watched, what Red Wings game did I watch? I watched both the Calgary and the Edmonton games of this road trip.
Well, the Calgary game was bad.
I watched it. And I watched the Red Wings feed too. As I told you when I was watching it.
Yeah, well, that would have made it a little better.
It was nice. I don't like to watch the Calgary feed. I get that too much because I live here. So I like to watch the new one. Anyways, yeah, I watched way too much Red Wings hockey this week. But
So
you're going to be watching that.
I'm going to watch that, but I think the Pittsburgh-Tampa game is going to be good, and it's relevant because we talked about the Pittsburgh Penguins today.
Absolutely. We should give some amount of credit to the Buffalo Sabres, who are also tied with the Avalanche for the tops of the league, and Edmonton as well. Colorado's first just because, they've lost less games. Nonetheless, they're playing this week. Edmonton is playing Washington. John Carlson and all the points versus Edmonton, who's getting all the points.
I like it. I'll watch that game.
That's my Thursday pick, and it's it's the late game. There's not always so many late games, so it's real easy to pick a late one.
Yeah, I like it. Friday. Why don't we do for something different Colorado Vegas?
At 4:00 in the afternoon local time.
Yes.
I seem to recall that there's some sort of, from last year, there's some sort of national, not national, because it's only in Nevada, some sort of holiday on Friday.
That's actually a 3 p.m. start in Vegas.
In Vegas? I couldn't remember what their time zone was.
Yeah.
So
that's
3 in the
weird.
afternoon. Yeah. I don't know what's happening in Vegas, but that's the early game. You can get that going. You can warm up for the rest of the lineup, which features things such as Sharks Leafs. Patrick Marleau's return to Toronto.
He'll definitely get a video board tribute.
Yeah, just all the things that he's done with the kids. They shouldn't show any on-ice moments for that Patrick Marleau tribute. It should all just be pictures of him with his children.
Yes. And by his children, you mean like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Matthews, Nylander. That's all it should be.
That's an amazing idea.
Well, you can use, that's a free one, Toronto. You can use that one. What's this bring us to? The 26th is Saturday, right? Sure. Yeah. Let's assume that.
It's a Saturday.
It is a Saturday. We've got actually a pretty good slate. We've got another Stanley Cup rematch. Boston, St. Louis.
Yeah.
Toronto, Montreal. They've both been playing pretty well. Tampa, Nashville. Any others? I mean, I've just been listing off good games. But
Calgary, Winnipeg is the Heritage Classic.
They're already doing that game in Regina?
Yeah.
It's October.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah. It's a 7 p.m. local, 8 p.m. local start? I think it's an 8 p.m. local start.
Well, here's what's hard. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan doesn't do time zone changes.
Oh, my God.
And so I never know what time it is in that province.
Probably neither do they.
No. I mean, it's always the same time for them. That's the easy part. They just don't know what the rest of the country's doing.
It's always, you know that saying, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. Always 5 o'clock in Saskatoon.
They're just changing their time on the... It's literally just 5 o'clock.
On the hour.
They
Roll
pulled
it back.
all the batteries out.
Roll it back.
Yeah.
All right.
Sunday.
I don't know. None of these really appeal to me.
Yeah. I'd probably watch... The Flyers are pretty fun this year.
Yeah?
And I haven't watched a ton of Islanders games yet. So I'd probably be watching them.
All right.
Because I want to see how the Islanders are still winning hockey games. And the Ducks.
That's against Vegas?
Ducks against Vegas. They keep winning too. Second in the Pacific.
We did not do well with our predictions so far.
You know what? No one predicted the Ducks were going to be second. Don't put that on me, Nick.
Who knew Corey Perry was holding them back so much?
That was it. Just him and Randy Carlyle.
That'll do it.
Those two.
Yep.
Well, those are our things of the week. Head on over to our Twitter, which is at Fourth Line Podcast, and you can play high sticking. Shout out to Nate. We'll be sending him off a puck. He was the winner of our last session of high sticking. I did not score this week's high sticking yet because I did this cool thing called being sick this weekend.
It's very cool of you.
Yeah, and I'm trying this new thing called being under the weather and not wanting to do anything. So that's what I did instead. So those will be coming out. Watch for points and updates coming out for those shortly. As well, you can head to fourthlinepodcast.com for more about the show. You can head to Alberta Podcast Network for more about the great network that we are on. As well, you can find out more about Alberta Forest Products Association, a great group of folks that are promoting forestry products in and around Alberta, and they've got something to tell you.
If you're an Albertan, chances are you love our forests. With more than 60% of the province covered in them, they're where we play, explore, and work. Over 40,000 Albertans are employed because of our sustainable forestry industry. And before a single tree is harvested, we plan 200 years ahead to ensure healthy forests for years to come. Why? Because you nurture what you love.
Learn more at loveabforests.ca.
Thanks to them for supporting the show and the Alberta Podcast Network. Until next week.
It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. And don't worry, my house is not on fire. Having a morning skate won't leave you too tired.